Okay. Good morning. Doing okay?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, limping a little bit.
Yeah. It's hard as a flat. You replace it with a spare. The spare gets flat. Then what do?
New car.
Get a new car.
It's regular
You
maintenance.
borrow your wife's car.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
What are we holding? We're on Yud Amid Aleph, towards the bottom. Okay. Right? 10A. He facilitated a partial damage, so he has to pay for the whole damage. That's what we learn. Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day.
Lines from the bottom on top.
How many lines from the bottom? 5, 10, 15, 16. It looks like 16 or 17 lines.
What order?
It's 2 dots there. It's this Sharti. Miktas Niskay. See that?
Yeah, this one.
We thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. This was about learning. We should have the basic Mikdash. Okay. It starts like this. We learned in the Mishnah that if someone causes partial damage, so he has to pay as if he did the whole damage. So Tanar Rabbanan, taught in the Brisa. He facilitated partial damage. He becomes obligated in paying the entire damage as if he facilitated the whole damage. Kate said, what's the case for this? So the Brisa gives us a case. It says, a chayfer bar tisha. Someone digs a pit, 9 tvachim. And another person comes and digs the 10th one. Now, a pit, in order to, this ditch, in order for it to cause harm that would cause death, it needs to be 10 tvachim deep. Under 10 tvachim, it can cause damage, but not death. So, over here, the last person that did the 10th tefach, he did the last the digging. So Achron Chayev, the last one is Chayev. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped over it. I skipped. Achron Chayev, it just says Achron Chayev. The last one is Chayev. Okay, so that's what we have. We have a case of a person that did some of the damage. He caused some of them. He did the last tefach. He didn't dig all 9. He didn't dig all 10. He only did one of the 10. And we consider him Chayev. And the Gemara says to the like Rebbe, in this brisa that's explaining how facilitating partial part of the damage. This is if he did all of it, this doesn't follow Rebbe's view. The Tanya was taught in the brisa. Tana Kamma holds that if someone digs a pit, someone else comes and makes it 10 tvachim. First person dug 9. Second person does the 10th. So the second person is chayev for the damages. Rebbe says, Rebbe says no. He says the first person that dug the 9, he's still chayev for nezikin, because what he did, he caused that someone could get hurt in here. He didn't cause that someone could die in here, because someone could get hurt. So he did the damage of getting hurt. The death would be the last person. He's the one that caused the last. It's a good machlekes. No, it's like you could see both sides to this. First person did cause some of the damage, and the second person caused the death. So if the person or whoever it was, an animal, not a person, because person not. If an animal fell in and got damaged, so then both have to pay. And if the animal fell in and died, then only the last one would have to pay. That's Rebbe's view. So according to Rebbe, when it comes to the damages, even though the second person caused some of the damage, we don't say that he's chayav for everything. We say they have to split it. So that this doesn't fit with Rebbe. Yeah, right now we're referring to a pit. That's part of the Gemara is going to come up with that. That's part of the issue. It didn't seem like we were just talking about a pit. It seemed like we were talking about much more than that. But because the Brisa says that the example of this is the pit, we're sort of like stuck in this, that the example is the pit. And then I try to expand it a little bit and see it's not going to really work.
My mind is already thinking, oh, an animal's injured and another animal comes and pours it and finishes it off.
That's going to be a Gemara later on. That type of discussion. There's a Gemara later on that talks about an animal that pours another animal and it falls into a pit, pushes it into the pit, and who has to pay for that? The owner of the pit and the animal, or that's a discussion later. That's in Haminiach. Okay. Well, it seems like it doesn't fit with Rebbe because Rebbe says that they're both obligated, and according to our Mishnah, only the second one, the last person, would be obligated. So Rav Papa comes along and says it's not necessarily so because Rav Papa says, "L'misa v'divrei hakol." Our Mishnah is talking about death, and you have to pay for the death of the animal, and it follows Rebbe's view because Rebbe holds that if you make it into 10 tefachim, then the last person is chayav, which is exactly what our Mishnah said. I know Rebbe didn't say that about Nizakin, about damages. He only said it about death. But if we say that our Mishnah is talking about a scenario where the animal died, then our Mishnah fits with Rebbe. Ikadami, that those that had this Gemara slightly different, this teaching, they said, Leimad like Rebbe, shall we say that it's not like Rebbe? Amar Rav Papa says the Misa v'divrei hakol. That Rav Papa says no, it's talking about death, and everyone agrees. So it's the first one says that clearly it's not like Rebbe. It comes along Rav Papa and adjusts it. Now we have a second version where the Gemara didn't say clearly it's not like Rebbe. The Gemara was only suggesting that maybe the Mishnah isn't like Rebbe, and then the Gemara says you don't have to suggest that. You could take that back because the Mishnah could fit like with Rebbe if we say that we're talking about the animal died. Okay, it's Rav Papa. Rav Papa in general likes to smooth things out. So Maskifla Reb Zeira, like Abaya. He's a student of Abaya. Sorry? He's a student of Abaya. How do you know that? You Rebbe? Oh, wow. Oh, that's good. Okay. Ula was a traveler and he would communicate with Abaya. But I don't think he was considered a student of Abaya. Oh, that could be. That could be. We'll have to follow Ula through the Gemara. Maskefla Reb Zeira has a question. You only have one case. The Bryce only gave me one case of someone that's a partial facilitator of a damage, right? And that's right where I got that word. And you don't have any more cases. I can tell you some more cases to this. Hill, you were mentioning like this. It's limited only to the pit. It says Vayika, we have other cases. Let's say someone gives his ox to 5 people to watch. There's like those kids in school with the shadows and another shadow and another. There's a lot of people there that are responsible for this. Anyway, here you have an ox. So there's a lot of people being responsible for this one animal. And one of them says, I'm not needed. And he walks away. And the animal causes damage on Yudam and Aleph. Says Chayev. That fellow is Chayev. Now, Rashi points out that this is not a brisa. Okay. The Gemara says, what's the case? Are we talking about, let's say there were 5 gates to this pen all around, and each person was supposed to stand in the opening to make sure that it doesn't go out. One person left, so an animal immediately sees where the opening is and runs out. So Pshita, Diokavid, he's the guy that left it open. he of course he's going to be chayiv. Not this is not even he facilitated part of the damage. He did the damage. Ella the balavi unami there must be that there was, let's say there was one gate, and in that gate there was more than one person. So it could have been guarded by those people that are there. He wasn't Ritaka wasn't necessary. So my covet. So then why is he being held responsible for? Okay, so that's where we're holding right now.
Would this depend about what kind of shomer they are?
And the link Daf is. Can someone send a link on the 5:30 thing? I could get to it, but it's gonna take me a minute. Let me just see 1 second. Back. Yeah, I'm sorry, Reb Naftali.
Would this depend upon what kind of shomer they are? In other words, if they're shomer soccer, then they're responsible for making sure that the other shomer isn't negligent also.
I think even if they're shemer chinam, if there's negligence, they're all chayiv. You know, or at least the one guy that was negligent is going to be chayiv. Oh, someone sent it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about there's a group of 5 and one doesn't do his job. If as a group they're shomer socher, then they're going to be responsible for each other, responsible for negligence, right?
Well, even a shemer chinam is responsible for negligence.
Yeah, but
if it's negligence,
the difference is in this case only the one who was negligent would be held responsible. If they're all shomer socher, then they're all going to be held responsible, it would seem. At least there's a logic to that point.
On the other hand, they say we all did our job. You know, the Gemara. The real problem here is the Gemara can't figure out what exactly happened. That there was only one person that caused part of the damage. If it's his fault, then it's not one person; it's his fault. And if it's everyone, so then why is only he the one that should be chayiv? And if it was guarded without him, the Gemara says, so then why is he being chayiv? He wasn't negligent at all.
Yeah, you know, the person who lost something, he's going to bring the lot of them to Beis Din. Otherwise, he's got to sort through what happened, and that's not his job if he appointed all of them. Because the problem he's going to have is a motze mechavaro, Olavaraya. Maybe you hear what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
The person that designated 5 is because he thinks that there's 5 people needed.
Right.
No.
That's the first rule in litigation. You sue everybody. The first rule in litigation is you sue everybody.
One of them will stick.
I think that there's a Gemara about this, but it's probably a case where there's a bunch of people around, and he says, "Guys, watch this," and the owner leaves, and everyone is like, who exactly did you want to watch this? There's a Gemara about that. If they didn't really accept responsibility, so that could be a different story. Here, there were people that were designated. Okay, so that's not going to be one of the cases of Ichsharti b'miktas niska that he facilitated part of the damage, because either he did all the damage or he didn't do anything. Maskefla Rav Sheshes. So Rav Sheshes has a question. Marbe b'chavila. Marbe b'chavila, Rashi explains, is if there's a fire, and they have these bundles of twigs that you put on the fire to make it burn, and the fire it's bigger. So if someone adds on an extra fire, adding on the fire, you didn't add it exactly on top. You added it a little bit towards the side. Now a little bit towards the side makes it go the fire a little closer to the neighbor's field. So the whole thing. The Gemara says, "Hey Chidami, what's the case? I'll be saying that without what this person did, the fire would not have traveled. So Pshita, of course, he's going to be chayiv. He's the one that made it go, so he's the one that's chayiv. Ella the Balavi was rather it would have traveled even without him. So my covered. So why are you saying that he should be chayiv? So who should be chayiv? The person that lit the fire. I guess they would all have to pay together. What does it say on the notes in there? Does it say that that they would all pay together? Where am I looking over here? Fire's owner certainly had no part in the destruction of the grain field, but had the bundle. Okay, that's the first one. In the case of let me see on the top. And if we say rather without intervention of the second person, the fire would have indeed traveled to the stack of grain and consumed it. Michael, what damage did he cause? 3. In this case, the fire's owner would be fully liable and the intervening party exempt. In the opinion of Tosfos, however, Micah Ovid is rendered, what did the second party do more than the first? Accordingly, both parties are liable. Yes, so whenever you have 2 readings, you have a machlokes. So Tosfos says that they would both be liable, and according to the Meiri, only the first one would be. Now, 1 second. According to Tosfos, the second person is jointly liable only if he had enough bundles to cause the stack of grain to ignite. The opinion of Rabbeinu Shimshon, and even so, Meiri disagrees. He writes that Rashi and Meiri, Sichesh and Mishpat writes that Rashi and Meiri are in accord. Okay, interesting. Maskefla Rav Papa. Rav Papa has a question. We loved this Gemara as a kid. This was like a Gemara that every kid remembered. Like an Elam Tzias, there was one Gemara that everyone remembered. The strings of fish, because on the page it had the triangle on the page. See, everyone, Shalom knows it. So this Gemara, or a sukkah on a wagon, remember that? Or a sukkah on a boat, remember those things? Yeah. So this one was like also had like an imagery to it, so we all remembered this one. Maskefla Rav Papa had a question. Vika had the Tanya was taught in a brisa. Hey, sheyashval sapsel echad. If there's 5 people that sat on a bench, and it didn't break. But then another person came and sat on it, and he broke it. That's the 6th person. Achan Chayev, he's the one that's Chayev. Rav Papa, and Rav Papa said, Kigoin Papa Barabba. He said this last person that came and sat on it was Papa Barabba, was someone like Papa Barabba, who apparently was quite heavy, and we were surprised when we learned this Gemara that why isn't it Lashon Hara? But I guess back then it wasn't a bad thing. So and he broke the chair. Such a person. So that would be like a significant action that he's the one that should be chayiv for everything. He's the one that he facilitated partial damage. He should be chayiv for the whole damage. That's the suggestion over here from Rav Papa. It's funny, Rav Papa adds in someone with the name of Papa. Maybe he means himself. Maybe that would explain why it's not Lashon Hara.
I thought if it's something obvious, then it's not Lashon Hara. Like everybody knows a person is heavy. Like it's
right. Unless it was said in a derogatory way, and over here it's not. Here it's just describing the halacha or whatever. I don't know. Does anyone know Rav Papa's father's name? I know all the kids' names. Okay. So, Hechidami, the Gemara asks, if we say that if he didn't sit down, it wouldn't have broken. So Pshita, of course he's obligated to pay for it. He's the one that broke it. He sat on it. Ella the Balavio, it's like an elevator. It has like a limit, right? So it's the last guy that gets in. So it said the limit is 10 people. You can't have the Balavio Nami Yitfar. Rather, without him, it also would have broke. 1 second. So my covered. So why is it considered that he broke it? He should. Everyone should be paying for this. So safe. 1 second. You're asking a kasha. You're asking a question that why shouldn't this be another example of our Mishnah? Our Mishnah said that what's a case of facilitating partial damage? We said it's a case of digging the pit. We said, what about this case? So now we're what you're doing is you're rejecting this case because you can't figure out how it works. Like what is it saying? Is it would it break on its own? Would it not break? Would it break without him? Would it not break without him? So, but the other cases were suggestions based on logic. But he said those cases don't fit. But now over here you quoted a brisa. Papa quotes a brisa that says 5 people said. So how do you explain the brisa? When you got rid of the suggestion that it should be part of our Mishnah, it should be an example for our Mishnah. So, but now you're left with the question. So, what does the brisa mean? So, what's the expression? You threw out the baby with the bathwater. You know, like you got rid of the. It's not a back on our Mishnah, but now you messed up the brisa. So how do you explain the brisa? So safe masti sechem metartz. The Gemara says like tzricha. Brisa we can explain. The balav iu havi mitbar. Without this person sitting on it, this kagain papa baraba person sitting down, it would have broken as well. But it would have taken 2 hours. But now it broke in 1 hour. The Amrilay, they tell him, if you didn't come and sit down, we would have sat a little bit longer and we would have stood up. We would wait till we start to feel it sagging a little bit. We would have gotten up. We were doing fine. So, but he could tell to them, but if not for you sitting there, I wouldn't have broken it. It's all because of you. Yeah. They were sitting there first. That's a good answer. Let me see what Rashi is saying over here. Yeah. So Rashi is pointing out that even though you're explaining, where the Gemara is explaining the brisa, but nevertheless it couldn't have gone back into our Mishnah. To be the case of our Mishnah, we are facilitated partial damage because these people that were sitting there didn't do any damage at all. The other, by the pit, they dug 9 tvachim. They already started the cause of damage, but nevertheless, the last person, he's considered responsible for all of it. But these other people, they didn't do anything. This person is really doing the whole damage when he's sitting down on it because it didn't even start to break.
Well, so the fellow dug the pit that was 9 tefachim, he did something wrong.
Right.
And the proof is that he's responsible for injury. But here, sitting on this, whatever, they didn't do anything wrong.
Right. Exactly. So therefore, the last person that came is the one that should only be responsible. And it won't fit into miktsas nizka, the language of hechsher miktsas nizka, the facilitating partial damage. He did the whole damage. Okay. So
without the other people,
yeah. So without the other people, it wouldn't have broken. That's a good claim. So they should also be responsible. So the Gemara explains now, the Gemara adjusted, it says like tzricha the bahadi the samach cover. That immediately when he leaned on it, it broke right away. What the Gemara is now doing is it's going back on what we said, that it would have broken in a certain amount of time, and then he said and it broke quicker. We're retracting from that. We're saying now that it wouldn't have broken at all without him. So then, why are we saying that he's what's the chiddush? Of course, he's the one that broke it. It says, well, actually, the chiddush here is that what we're saying is, the Gemara is going to say right now, the Gemara says pshita. That's obvious that he should be responsible. What's the base over here? takes out the people. I could have thought that maybe his strength is not considered like his body. The kol heichad the gufay tavar koich nami tavar. I don't understand what the Gemara really means. I mean, if he leaned on it, what's the difference if he leaned on it or if he sat on it? Both of them should be the cause of. I could have thought that maybe he leaned on it. He shouldn't be higher.
Because it says that by him leaning, it prevents the other from getting up.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
They
that's what it says.
They couldn't escape.
No, but okay. Then okay, not when he leaned on it. They didn't even know to get up because it was so fast. That's what I understood. You're saying that he blocked them.
Yeah. Since his fall prevented the others from rising, he cannot claim that they contributed to, and those should share liability for the damage.
They wanted
So
to.
when Ismach aleihem, he leaned on them. He leaned on them.
But that changes everything.
Oh, so he leaned on them, not on the chair. He leaned on them, and so he blocked them from getting up. Okay, that now. So what happens now? So I could have thought that maybe he should be exempt because it was indirect. He leaned on them, and they were sitting on the chair, so he shouldn't be the one that's responsible for everything. So Kamash Malan. Going to teach us the if he would have sat down, it would have broken. So also when he leans on them, that's also exactly the same thing. Okay. Whatever the case is, this can't go back into our Mishnah because in our Mishnah, the other people weren't doing any damage. For them, it was perfectly fine. Now we have another suggestion. Vasuleka, you don't have any more. Vayeka, we have. Just put that in over here. Samach Bahu. Then.
A lot more complicated.
Yeah.
A lot more very thinking that maybe that bench was suitable for all of them, but maybe it was weakened. Someone else like kind of weakened it. Like the wood had a crack, and then he got close and then cold about this time. But it was initially maybe capable of carrying them all.
They said this guy joked about, those chairs that have a wicker seat. The seat is wicker. It's like a lot of little holes, and it's like anyway, they always fall through if they're a little while. Anyway, someone sat on it, it fell through. So they said, "What happened?" They said, "Oh, it's just like Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, when he went to sleep, all the rocks said the tzaddik should put his head on me." He said all the rocks joined together. And anyway, he says, when I sat down, all the holes, they said the tzaddik should put his whatever on me. And they all joined together, and it fell right through. Okay. So, the Suleka, that's the only thing. We have another case. The Tanya would start in a brisa. Let's say 10 people hit him with 10 sticks. Each one took a turn hitting this person. And then he died. It doesn't matter if it was all at the same time or if it was one after another. Kulam Peturim, they're all exempt. Why? Each one contributed. And you can't make anyone be the one that's considered the one that killed him. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir says no. If it's one after another, then the last guy is the one that's chayav. Right. But when it comes to the death, yeah. When it comes to the death, who you're gonna what's it called? Who you're gonna pin it on? So Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir says the last one. So now here, this is very similar to the case of the bit because everyone did contribute. And we're going to say, according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that the last one, he's the one that caused the damage. We're going to put all the responsibility on him, which is exactly what our Mishnah is referring to, where you have everyone is doing some sort of damage, and one person is the one that's held accountable. So really, this would be a perfect case to match with our Mishnah. The Gemara says, why didn't we do that? Why didn't the Brisa do that? Biktala like Kamari. We're not talking about death. Not talking about death. This doesn't fit with Rav Papa. Rav Papa said we're dealing with the death of the animal. Remember? He said we're not talking about damages. We're only talking about death. The argument must mean death, human death. We're not talking about death penalties. That's what it means. We're not talking about death penalties.
They're all exempt from the death.
But not Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says no, but Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is the whole point of this Gemara. That we could have said that according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that we have one person that's responsible for. Right? So the Gemara says we're not dealing with. We weren't talking about death penalty. We were talking about paying for damages. That's so, which that would be applicable even to the death of an animal. Okay. Another teretz we could say, that's a machlekes. You have the Rabbanan, you have Rabbi Tanakam, and you have Yehuda ben Beseira. We weren't discussing machlekes. You're not talking about this the machlekes, but you started off saying that it didn't fit with Rebbe. It says, well, I thought we resolved that. So we said that we're dealing with Misa, and Rebbe would agree. But any comment on that in the notes over there? According to one version, it says that. All right. Okay. The Gemara could have answered this in different ways, but the Gemara says, the like Rebbe Karabanan Mukmina. To say that we're not following Rebbe, but we're following the Rabbanan, that we're willing to do, because that's the majority. But to go the other way, to say that this whole Mishnah is following, and the Bryce is following a single opinion, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, and not the Rabbanan, that we didn't want to do. Okay. Fine. Now the Gemara says, he's obligated to pay for the damages. Doesn't say that he's obligated to pay the damage. Like only with the, how do they translate tashlumi? The payment of the damages. But it means really to fill in the damage. To fill in. Tashlum means to what's that called? Is there a word there that they're using for it? Completion. All right. Tanin Allah Tanar Rabbanan. This is what you were just medayik over here from the Mishnah. We actually we're taught this in a brisa clearly. What does the brisa say? It says tashlumi nezek. It says you have to complete the payment of the damage. That means
Restitution. No?
Restitution. Okay, restitution. Restitution is you make up what's missing from the damage. So what happened over here is that the animal was gored, right, or fell into a pit or whatever it is, and the carcass has some value to it. What do you do with the carcass? You use it as animal food, right? It says like, give it to the dog. You can give it to whatever, but it does have some value. What is that value? The animal is worth $200. The carcass, let's say, is worth $10, whatever. So, but how much does the person now owe? Does he owe 200 or does he owe 190? So what we're saying now is that the owner, which means the nizik, the victim, he has to take care of the carcass, sell it in order to get his full value back. The one that damaged only has to pay the 190. He makes restitution. How do we know that this is the case? We're going to have a bunch of sources for this, and then the Gemara is going to say, why do I need each of these sources? Rabami says, the pasuk says, if someone hits, this is talking about a human that hits an animal, and he kills the animal. Don't say that he has to pay for it. It means that he has to complete it. What do we? What does complete mean? It means that you have to make restitution. It means you have to pay up the difference in price between what it was worth. What it was worth before, and you add the carcass back in to the.
Yeah, Ellie,
Yeah.
is the logic here that the victim must be that the victim owns it? There has to be the logic, however you get there, that the victim owns the carcass as soon as the
Right.
damage is done.
Right. Now we don't have to do that. The Gemara could have, the Torah could have said that because he did the damage, so you have to pay a brand new one.
Right.
We find like shar tachas ashar. It sounds like you have to replace a brand new item for the one that was damaged, which is really what the person wants. What do you want me to do with the,
Yeah. It's an extra burden on the victim.
It's an extra burden on the victim, right? Now it must mean that the Torah is considering the one that caused the damage as someone that's not doing it intentional, and we're being soft on his payment. We're being soft on him. He doesn't need to go through that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have to take the carcass and try to sell it and all of that. Okay. So Rav Kana Amar Mehacha, Rav Kana says from here, in Tarif Yaviu, this is talking about a Shemer Sachar. It says that if the animal that he was watching gets torn up by a fox or a wolf, so Yaviu aid, you have to bring a witness that's what happened, and you'll be exempt because that's considered an inus. It's considered beyond his control. Sorry? Unpreventable circumstance. So that would be a Shemer Sachar is exempt from paying for that. A Shemer Sachar is a paid watchman. There's 4 types of watchmen. Free, just he's not paid. It's called the Shemer Chinam. Chinam is free. Shemer Sachar means he's a paid watchman. Then there's a borrower, and then there's the Seicher, which is the renter. The renter is somewhere in the middle. It's right. The Seicher is like a Shemer Chinam or a Shemer Sachar. It's much like a Seicher. It's a Shemer Sachar. So the one that's over here, we're talking about the Shemer Sachar. And if an inus happens, if the unpreventable circumstance happens that causes the animal to die, he doesn't have to pay for it. Only if it was some sort of slight negligence of that lost or stolen. Shemer Chinam has to pay for real negligence, not for lost or stolen. So it says, you have to bring a witness. He doesn't have to pay for the torn animal. Now the Gemara readjusts the commas in this, and it says, Yeviu ad hatreifa yishalim. Until the treifa, he pays. Until the torn animal, he pays. It means, but treifa atzmali yishalim doesn't have to pay for when someone causes damage. Doesn't have to pay for the actual treifa, for the carcass, because the carcass is already paid back to the person. We have them. You keep the carcass, and I'll fill in the rest, the restitution. Chizki has another source. It says Ramesi Eloi. It's talking about when it falls into a pit. Lenizik, it says that the carcass belongs to him. It's talking to the victim. It was started in the house of Chizkiya of Ramesi Eloi Lenizik. We have a brisa, the same thing that Chizkiya said. You say that it belongs to the nizik, means the victim. Maybe it really belongs to the perpetrator. Amrit like says no, that's not so. That's not how it was. My like kachaya, what does it mean? That's not how it was. Abaya explains, Isal kadaitach nemel the mazakavi. If you would, 1 second. Ramesiala is by the pit, or by Mesiala is by the by an animal that gores another animal. I think it's an animal that goes another animal. So, if you would think that that the carcass belongs to the perpetrator, let it just say that he pays an ox for an ox. An ox for an ox would mean that he has to replace the whole thing, and he keeps the perpetrator keeps the carcass, and he replaces the brand new ox. So why does it have to say that the animal belongs to him? You see, we have these extra words. The animal belongs to him, but him is a pronoun. We don't know who the him is. Does it mean the victim or does it mean the perpetrator? So the Abai is explaining that if it would mean the perpetrator, then it wouldn't have to say that the animal belongs to him because he already said you have to replace the ox. So of course the animal belongs to him, you have to give him a new ox. It must mean, it must mean that the animal belongs to him. It means that when it says you replace the ox, it doesn't mean that you replace mamish the ox. It means that you replace the ox besides for the carcass, the value of the carcass, which belongs to the victim. Okay, now the Gemara says, now the Gemara says that it's necessary to have all of these sources to explain that the carcass belongs to the victim. Because if it would just have the first one that says if a person hits an animal and he has to make restitution, I would say that in such a case, it's so uncommon for a human to have a fight with an animal and kill the animal that over there we were lenient on the perpetrator. He said, I don't know how that came about, whatever, that's a freak story. So you don't have to take care of the carcass. The victim will take care of the carcass. You just pay up the rest. But we say that a fox comes in and snatches the animal, that's more common. We would say that no, that you have to pay for that, and you have to take the carcass. That's a more common story. So it's necessary to say, in that case, that the nizik keeps it, and he doesn't have to pay it up. Biyashmin and treifa. If it would say when it gets torn up by a wild animal, yishum de memela. I would say that the reason why the mazik doesn't need to take care of that carcass is because he didn't really do anything. This was from the outside. An animal came in. So we're going to be softer on him because it's not like he did it on purpose. But if he actually hits the animal and he gets into a fight with it, he kills the animal, we'd say, no, it's your job to take care of that carcass. He killed the animal with his hands. It wasn't an animal from the outside. These are just different reasons of why we should be softer on the mazik or on the nizik. Biyashmin and hanitarti, if we would have both of those cases, the animal that's fighting with the human, or an animal that gets torn up by a wild animal. Each one would have a leniency why the perpetrator should not have to deal with it, and it should go to the victim should have to deal with it. But which that's when one ox scores another ox. The shricha, that's very common. It would be a dayim. Why is it called be a dayim? It's not really with his hands. I think it means because it was intentional, because the ox gored intentionally. A malay, I would say that is something that the perpetrator would have to take care of. So therefore, it has to tell me that no. If it would just say that if it would have only that case, because that's when his money is causing the damage. And so we're going to be lenient on him because it's only his money. But over here, if it's the Shemer Sachar, which he himself was supposed to be the one that's guarding the animal, we're considering it gufa because he was supposed to be the one that's protecting it. But say that no, that he has to take care of the victim, not the victim, the carcass. He has to take care of the carcass. So therefore, it has to tell me that that no, it always goes to the nizik, and the mazik means the perpetrator just has to do restitution. Amalei Rav Kana Rav Rav Kana says to Rav, you're telling me that if not for the pasuk that says Vamesi Eloi, then we would say that the mazik has to keep the carcass. We would say that the perpetrator has to keep the carcass. So 1 second. Hashti Yislay Lidide Kamet Chafis. Yavlay. Damar Ma Yashav Rabbi Shavakasa Subin. Demi Bay says, I don't get it. Let's say this guy has a butcher shop. The Mazik has a butcher shop. And he owes money because his animal did damage to the. So what can he use to pay up for the damage? He can use all the carcasses that he has. If he wants to pay real estate, then he has to give the best. But if not, he can use actually the carcasses that he has in his butcher shop to pay up for the thing. So why do I need a pasuk to tell me that the victim keeps the carcass and not the perpetrator? Perpetrator could give 100 carcasses to him. He can't give him the one that just died. No, it says he can even give bran. It says Mar says what we're really talking about is if there was a change in value between when it was at the time of death to the time of payment. So who owned the carcass at that time? Chas nevela. Okay, I guess we'll have to leave it over here. What we're saying now is that difference in value was really the whole time it was the nizik, and the mazik, the damager. He only has to pay what the difference in value was from at the time of death. So if afterwards, by the time they came to court, it was only worth $2, but at the time of death it was worth $10. He has to pay 190, not 198, because that when it got worth less, that was the nizik's problem. He already started his payment originally by that. Not started his payment. He didn't even owe for that. I don't like it.
Okay, thank you.
Leave it over here.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day. I'm going to be away on